going to get started. I do want to mention that tomorrow at 3, Glenda Beal is going to be here. She's very much involved in NetWest, along with Catherine too. She has a collection of poetry. It's about her love of animals and pets throughout the ages. So if you want to come see her, talk about that tomorrow. That's going to be at 3 tomorrow. Glenda Beal. Yeah, she's a Western North Carolina poet.
Where's she from?
Oh, you had to ask. Yeah.
Somewhere.
So we'll go ahead and get started. It looks like we have Avram up first.
Get me out of the way here. Everybody, so I'm Avram Friedman, and I have been regularly reading from a book I'm in the process of writing called The Truth About Plumbing. And we're in a section of the book called Waste Not, Want Not. And this chapter is called Venting Your Fixtures and Your Frustrations. So, the most commonly misunderstood and understated component in plumbing is the network of pipes that provide venting for the drainage system. To the scientifically challenged and ill-informed masses, designing and building an elaborate venting system can be viewed as an unnecessary waste of time and materials only required by the code to create more profit for the plumbing supply industry and to add hours onto the job for the benefit of plumbing contractors. After all, if a drain pipe is continuously sloped in the right direction, the water is going to flow downhill eventually with or without a vent pipe attached, right? Well, not exactly. And besides, this assumption misses the point. The venting system serves 2 major essential purposes. It lets air in and sewage gas out. Water has more mass and weight than most people realize. 1 cubic foot of water actually weighs a little more than 62 pounds. When a substantial mass of used water evacuates a bathtub, washing machine, toilet, or sink, it fills the entire volume of a section of the drain pipe and leaves a strong vacuum in its wake as gravity draws it down. If no air is available to fill that vacuum, the water will proceed on its journey in fits and starts, making a loud glugging sound as it physically hammers and vibrates the pipes. If you hear that sound, it usually means there is an obstruction in a vent pipe. Over a period of years, this will damage the pipe joints, resulting in leakage, as it also harms the integrity of whatever building structural members to which the pipes are attached. A properly located and functioning vent pipe will provide the air necessary to relieve the vacuum, permit an even, continuous flow of water, and prevent the hammering. It's necessary for every fixture with a drain, every sink, tub, shower, stall, toilet, or floor drain to be provided with a vent for this purpose. There are back vents, front vents, wet vents, group vents, and every manner of configuration that will serve the purpose while still accommodating the physical limitations of the building. Where the building structure will not accommodate an outdoor vent, sometimes the code will allow the plumber to install a Studer vent within the confines of the building. A Studer vent is a one-way valve that allows air to be sucked in but will temporarily not allow toxic gases from the drain system to escape into the house. Although commonly used as a permanent solution, it is temporary because all valves, being mechanical devices with moving parts, eventually fail. Springs rust or suffer metal fatigue and break. Gaskets deteriorate. You get the idea. Studer vents can be located under sinks, in closets, and other spaces that are theoretically accessible so they can be replaced when necessary. The point of a Studer vent is that it can be located within the confines of a building. It only serves the purpose of relieving the vacuum created by draining water from a fixture located in a place that makes it impractical to run a vent out the roof. Most homeowners don't know what a Studer vent is or if one exists in their home, and will probably never replace it as they wonder about the funny smell coming from the cabinet under the island sink in the kitchen. This brings us to the other reason for venting. Perhaps even more importantly than allowing a steady drain flow, the venting system provides an escape for sewage gas produced by the septic system or the municipal sewage system to which the building's drain system is attached. Sewage gas is primarily methane, a flammable and explosive hydrocarbon produced as a byproduct by anaerobic bacteria as it consumes the nutrients in human waste and other dead organic matter. Unless you are contemplating suicide, you do not want to breathe in a steady stream of methane gas. For one thing, methane smells like shit. Or more accurately, shit smells like methane, because this is the gaseous substance being released as human and animal digestive waste decomposes. So, the venting system is allowing all the methane gas to leave the sewage system as it is being produced 24 hours every day. Should this system stop functioning due to some obstruction in the pipeline, the methane will build up pressure and start pushing through cracked pipe joints and bubbling up through drain traps everywhere in the house, posing a health hazard to the inhabitants. A particularly dim-witted bird will sometimes find the top of a protruding vent pipe to be a good place to build a nest. It happens. This will prevent air from coming in and out and sewage gas from leaving. Every plumbing fixture in a building has a P-trap under it or built into it. This P-trap is filled with water. The water in the trap is preventing sewage gas from coming up through the drain. If there is a floor drain in your laundry room, or if there is a sink, bathtub, or shower stall in the house that almost never gets used, the water will evaporate from the P-trap under the fixture and methane will enter the living space. This happens all the time. If your laundry room smells like someone forgot to close the outhouse door, it's probably because the water evaporated from the P-trap under the floor drain or the laundry sink that rarely gets used. It's easy to fix. Just pour a pint of water down that drain once a week for the rest of your life. Most people don't know or can't remember to do this, however. Having said all this about the absolute necessity of venting drainage systems in buildings, it's easy to overlook the profound global implications of this practice. Every inhabited building in America and in most of the so-called civilized world is pumping methane gas into the Earth's atmosphere 24 hours a day, 365 days a year, through their drain vents on the roof. Raw, unburned methane is about 100 times more potent as a greenhouse gas than it is carbon dioxide. Holy shit.
I knew that was coming.
Now, this realization may trigger a light bulb in the minds of some people who are reading this. Why, you may ask, isn't it commonplace to capture the methane as it leaves the vent pipes and then burn it as a valuable fuel for heating and cooking purposes? Methane burns very cleanly and completely, producing only a tiny fraction of greenhouse gases in the form of carbon dioxide. We'd get free fuel and less impact on the climate, killing two birds with one stone. Brilliant! So glad you asked this question. Perhaps some young scientific genius will come along and invent an inexpensive mechanical device that will allow us to safely collect and store methane from our septic systems without blowing ourselves up or burning down our houses. Such a device would never malfunction or create a serious problem, of course.
All right, next up we have Tom Baker. That's a hard act to follow.
You ain't said shit.
Well,
Next time you see Walt.
yeah, while we're on the shit topic, I burnt shit and nom. I didn't realize I was creating a hazard. Hey, now, for the last 2 years, I have read either from my novel or from my memoir, and my wife threatened me with bodily harm if I didn't do it again tonight. Well, I'm not doing it tonight. The other morning I woke up at 5 o'clock with this ideal in my head. And so I knew if I went back to sleep it would vanish into the back parts of my brain that I'd never bring forward again. And so I jumped out of bed, built a fire, grabbed a cup of coffee, and I wrote this stuff down. So you can throw rocks at me or whatever, but it's my attempt at a little bit of poetry, so bear with me. The journey. We pass through time like an old sailing ship. Two ships, really. Their high masts tightly bound together with strong cords of love and lust and light. The sails are a little tattered, but they still catch the winds of life well. There are many patches in the sails, but the stitching is strong and the winds that blow from many directions move us forward toward the home port that is hidden in the light fog of existence. The lighthouse made of hope and ideals shines through the fog and guides us away from the rocky perils that line the shore. An old soldier stands guard on the port side of the bound together vessels. His rifle is not at the ready, but slung across his shoulder, just in case. He has several wounds from battles fought both at home and abroad, but his eyes are bright as he scans the future. He rests one scarred hand on the gunwale, which sets above many portholes with ready but slightly rusted cannon. The planks under his combat boots seem to call out the lonely sound of taps. A beautiful woman stands near the railing on the starboard side of the ship. Her hair shows gray, but her stance is proud as she looks to the sky where white doves flutter above with olive branches in their claws. Her dress is white and her cloth ruffles in the warm breeze of hope and love. A song fills the air around her as she too scans the future. The great pairing of ships is guided by a single rudder. A hawk and dove stand either side of the solid oar of guidance. The sea are fairly calm compared to the many storms both ships have come through. The sun of love and hope peeks over the horizon, and a warm breeze fills the sails as our ship of togetherness rounds the next bend. That's about as poetic as I can.
Okay, next we have Susan White.
Well, I'm not very good at trying to explain my poetry, so I'm just going to read it. And I've got, I think, 4 poems I'm going to read. My name is Susan White. This first one's called Ancient Mountains. Gorky wrote of horses, I am sure they perceive all the senseless actions of man. I live in the house on the hill and watch them in the field below, every action, if purposeful, confined. Their well-fed silhouettes make me think of wolves howling across the Lamar Valley, hunger and the unreal cold driving them on, while we meander, unable either to survive alone or live together as one. The snow melts steadily from the roof, falling down the gutters, a rhythmic if manic noise, like the mechanical drumming of 100 cheap tin toys. Above, the dying hemlocks release frozen branches, the sudden stiff half-falling of an old dog onto a carpeted floor. Not far from here, the Trail of Tear begins. I read the book years ago, grieved as best I could for their frozen children. But the snow is melting, there are no wolves here, only the coyote my Cherokee neighbors trap and shoot for a paltry bounty. We live in gray times, neither black nor white, and the ancient mountains bear our burden as best they can. Okay. The second one is called Slave Soul. It's got 3 parts. Part 1. In Florida, I knew a woman who kept a tank of seahorses. Less beautiful than miraculous, suspended through some alien force, colorless behind the heavy glass, more bridled snake than fish. Thus the proud beast humbled must master itself alone to be free from a sea of dreaded certainty. 2. How to escape this sluggish state, yet remain calm on the April wind, seeking neither ignorance nor knowledge nor bliss. Fall hounded beneath life careening onward, or join the howling mass, monotone, fleshless. We talk and talk, yet possess little more than fear of the unknown disguised as the known. 3. Be assured, more snakes than dogs there ever are, more creatures of foam than all idols of pure desire. We must love our secret, silent lives. It is who we are. Creatures who taste, smell, hear, before see or speak, living within the very sun and wind we breathe. We learned to sing over millions of years, not to master the universe within or without, but simply to feel our slave soul lifted in compassion for all. The third one is called Nomad's Song. And it is supposed to be kind of a song, I think. In the afternoon sun, the horses and I slept. I dreamt of a glorious battle worth all our deaths, but woke to the glory of day fading and wept for the world in which I lived. Wept for the horses, wept for the men whose lives are spent fallow as our flesh is clean. Longing, longing as only those sent to a meaningless battle can long in their last moment for reprieve from 1,000 small misunderstandings that amount now to all and nothing. Nothing is required of us but ignorance, for which all is given. How can so much be sacrificed in exchange for nothing? As for myself, I wander deeper than dream into this wandering song. Go back to the horses, go back to the land. Money in a warm bed will never equal glory in death, glory in life, dirt and beauty, love and war. And then I have one poem that's a little more personal. I taught GED classes for a while, and this is based on that experience. The men sharpen pencils dexterously on dollar instruments, while I can rarely depend for joy on anything less than art, and break the lead every time. Sanchez, Crow, Big Witch, Price, and Reed. I teach them so much useless information we call knowledge, scorn the hours spent, devoured and regurgitated tirelessly by an incessant vibration, some dollar movie demon turning in the tomb of the new craggy prison. Something female overburdened, once bright, the old craggy entrances me, driving past its damp yellow skeleton, a decrepit fort along the railroad. I doubt she ever wept or sang, but better her silence than this low-slung mechanical hum, sitting on a fixed metal stool in a concrete cell. Once an evening, if they choose, they can go outside to stand in a metal cage or throw handball. In the winter, Sanchez says, he's the only one from his pod to go. He stretches, stands, and breathes. That's it.
Next up is Matt Nelson.
Okay, you guys are in for a bit of a treat, especially those who don't know what I do, but I like taking song titles of artists I like and just make a kind of an epic poem about it. And I couldn't really think of anyone else but to do Johnny Cash, and this is the longest one I've done, so you might want to give me like another minute and a half, but I had a lot of fun doing this. I often walk the line between insanity and ignorance. All the time. Oh, and it's not too narrow. Instead of a thin border, it's a wide open road with many travelers going up and down, making things like swimming across a big river from humanity's sweat and tears. Along this road river, you might hear a lonesome whistle breaking the silence of the flow, with many unsure of the source, leading into stampedes to get an ear for a second listen, only to find the wall of not having a clue as to what's really going on in the world today. The problem is that life can be as dark as a dungeon, so finding an exit is very difficult. So from the long black veil obscuring where many have been, forcing them to continue with no ideas about the call of the wild, granting a new path back towards the forgotten light. Many of these travelers have no expectations about where they'll end up, as they don't care too much if they remain at the bottom of the mountain with the rest of the lost society, stemming from an ancient history repeating without many changes of the scenery or clues for breaking the cycle, so that when the wind changes to a slightly less foul aroma, a few can smell. However, I can't help if so many are content to remain swimming in their dismal river, 5 feet high and rising from the ignored misery, congealing and bearing souls wanting an escape from the ring of fire, burning stronger every day from ignorance becoming the norm. What people need to do is get rhythm so to keep their feet from moving away from this despair and out onto the train of love, heard deep in the night, waiting for its next batch of odd passengers. Not many can find a ticket, but I guess things happen that way to prevent overcrowding. Allowing for one more ride in case the late bloomers remember where the station lies, full of people saying that it's not enough living without purpose in a society that doesn't care. So just shout, "Hey Porter," and you could be on the next train out of here, but more remain in misery, often stuck in the Fool's Hall of Fame, not realizing they were part of the many attractions, and thankfully unaware that their rusty cage has plenty of room to spend an eternity inside. The problem with getting people to leave behind their old lives lying in the flesh and blood, binding so many to old memories trapped in that old wheel called time that never stops turning, taking many along the field of diamonds representing dreams ready to be experienced, somewhere on the borderline of the wishful thinking and increasing insanity we all have. Often involving waking up on easy street where the real trap of life is quickly sprung. So by the man in black who knows that you'll never be able to leave, whatever whatever fate claimed next. Claimed its next victim with a soft red velvet carpet with the same kind of cake waiting for them for sedation, so they never realized the masterpiece they desperately sought is far beyond what they saw, as immediate gratification grips many like a boa constrictor. And breaking free is all but impossible, while also feeling sweeter than flowers, so that no one is tempted to run away from their fate. I've been everywhere, so I know that people want to change and need a lot of help doing so. And that's natural, as the world is scary, with the muddy waters rising to make it hard to find the way, leading me to meet many souls with no expectations, so providing their own miracle. So with many such individuals crossing my path lately and staring back at me like deer caught in the headlights, when I tell them there is no charge for coming along just to see what else life has to offer. Some are already gone when I get to them, so goading them into join their free friends is tough. So all I do is drive to where everyone is eager to listen to anything that isn't their normal noise, while trying to provide a reason to believe that the world isn't some kind of colossal gray blob. So while trying to provide, gray blob pretending to provide a little southern comfort disguised as a blurry rainbow pasted in the sky, giving many the cold shoulder when someone questions what is seen draped over the still land. So I can't help if I can't save everyone right away. It's people have very complicated needs, and I don't know who's next in line for picking up, so I can run into people who are really stubborn, making me feel like I'm lost in the desert and staring at a curious mirage, wanting a friend. Yet it does me no good waiting for a train to take away such a person, so I have to come back. When the troublesome water have calmed enough to get through the dense layers of skull, and as long as the grass shall grow in desolate places, I'll do my best to try and inspire something in anyone willing to cross the big river of life with a powerful current meant for the lost ones, waiting for me while I'm still in town, trying not to cry from not getting to everyone on the first go. I forget who they were, but I still miss someone who brought a huge crowd ready to leave, avoiding the bad news of getting another batch of ungrateful morons staring blankly while looking for the pie in the sky that will never be served fresh or sweet ice cream. Quickly proving the brain cells of these morons are incredibly loathsome to the bone, and all I can think is look at them beings dressed as humans trying to imitate normal life. The biggest problem with my mission is that I have to complete it one piece at a time, with one too many mornings, feeling like I've never saved anyone or desired my own salvation, so I don't have to be a part-time ghostwriter in the sky with many other discouraged beings with wings in the morning, barely able to flex, let alone spread enough to attempt flying, almost like each one weighs 16 tons and serve as a punishment for not doing enough to give myself a smile when I try to solve the mystery of life, so for so many people needing the first clue. Sometimes it's like a Sunday morning coming down after a long Saturday night of partying, and a certain kind of burden prevents you from moving a tiny bit, yet there's still a big job to do. Said, on these days I hung my head hoping it wouldn't fall forward, and hoped the pain would end before I saw the light of the morning coming to burn my eyes, make me want to go back to bed. Just another early day in the home of the blues, creeping out into loudly to motivate me to start work, making me cry, like some little child watching a depressing movie for the first time, while granting the feeling of being so doggone lonesome amongst the expanding universe. I guess this is the story of a broken heart. It's a place in a body meant to inspire happiness in everyone. Yet I'm on the trail of finding people be brought back into the light despite not feeling well after having beans for breakfast, which is horribly ironic based on who I often run into. When I first started being this cynical guardian angel, I couldn't help from crying constantly, from knowing it would be some time before the sunset lets me go get some much needed rest, and oh lonesome me for not having many co-workers to share their wisdom in how to cope. Luckily, I pressed on and got tougher to become a roughneck servant. I said, you see before you now. I said, with a wall of doubt, I said, small enough to jump over. I was able to continue finding people to teach that the blizzard blocking the way was hardly more than a flurry and a gentle wind, and taking a little more time to enjoy another cup of coffee. And said, the world seems a little less gloomy so long as there's another song to sing. Anyone can resist the darkness pulling away from hope. Instead of being the joke of the matador when he wants to be sadistic, to steal the happiness in order to impress and divert the face of despair from themselves while making others miserable. So peace in the valley will barely last a few minutes, but that's all the time for the magic to work. So when raising the old flag to prove I can't give up on humanity, just to kill a lot of time before reaching for the stars with everyone I've led to glory, also reaching up and back on the proud land where no one has to worry about being oppressed or trying to fit in anywhere. Sometimes you have to feel the 4 strong winds on your face instead to smell the sweetness leading towards the bouquet of a wildwood flower, putting your mind at ease so your heart can relax, while savoring the orange blossom special of entering the paradise you've desperately sought. The problem with this is when the man comes around to tell people their time has come, and many shout, "Don't make me go," from finally seeing everyone embracing the changes of life. However, I see a darkness swallowing many, unwilling to take a few moments of joy from not taking the time to enjoy the company of a wayfaring stranger, wanting people to smile, and said, to the point where they hurt, from no longer resisting the desire not to be consumed by the gloom. They won't have far to go in their new world, as it's always been chasing after them like a dog, with many realizing they're in the jailhouse now, and there's no bail, parole, or being acquitted. Singing the prisoner's song every waking moment until they drop, from being left alone to rot. So after learning nobody cared about them, to take them for a walk into the light and in the singing. Yet for so many, it's a little too late to take the first step onto the road meant for healing. These people are busted and allow themselves to be repaired by those who pushed them off the infamous shelf during the hostile takeover, instead with too many horrible scars, going ignored as no one bothered to ask the foolish questions created by the new rulers, preserving ignorance. All over again, and it gets harder for others to understand life with something to savor all the time. Coming from having a heart of gold shining bright from within the lucky ones, standing tall and brave. So while riding first class on the evening train, taking him to the new world just as dawn breaks. Some people think such an impossible journey is life's railway to heaven and death is the ticket. Yet such an inn is on a station farther along. So anyone can climb aboard and enjoy the trip, to find no earthly good comes from not making friends and helping them out of the thick fog. We all must find our way out. So I said, so at the path to the friendly gates of salvation, I said, waiting to open soon to share the loving gift of the universe that things are reborn if the effort is put into the change. So don't be led astray by any old wind that blows because it feels soothing for a few moments. You have to put the sugar to bed and find your own bit of sweetness to cling to tightly, because that's where a thing called love is born, to greet all who are lost and in need of a hug. And if not for love, I only try to cheer everyone up when the weather's very bad outside. So no need to worry as long as you give me a chance to share some of my wisdom, because I bet you've got a new shining light in your eyes, perfect for peering through the darkest of days. Just don't bring your goods to town if you plan on splitting the good word amongst fools tonight. That's it. It was hot up here.
All right, next we have Sherry Durando.
Oh, that's her. Thanks for coming.
Several weeks ago, Catherine prefaced a reading with, "Every poet feels compelled to write a fall poem." It seems so. Maybe it's poetic fascination with ambivalent feelings toward change, or with the paradox of autumn, its beautiful but inevitable transition toward death. Maybe poets are old souls who feel more at home in liminal places, drawn to those way stations where poetic imagination that thrives on the emotional upheaval of memory, tragedy, violence, love, hate, life, and death. Or maybe we're just obsessed with our own mortality. A few years ago, about the time euthanasia was being legalized in Belgium, I read about what the press called a botched execution. A grisly description of a 2-hour-long lethal injection, during which the condemned screamed that he felt he was on fire as he writhed and gasped for breath. I passed through one of those way stations then, remembering the traumatic euthanasia of my buddy, one of the horses we've been privileged to care for over the years. The trauma tangle itself into the news story, and my own concerns over euthanasia, something which troubles me for many
I'm
reasons.
sorry.
Fall on you. Yeah.
Proof that this was shot live.
That trauma, Buddy's death, one of the horses we've been privileged to care for over the years, tangled itself into the news story and my own concerns over euthanasia, something which troubles me for many reasons, practical, historical, and personal. These ideas coalesced into a narrative poem I call The Sentence, which also happens to take place in autumn. The Sentence. It came when such things always seem to, when the sun ratchets down the final remnants of comfort behind mountain crests, drawing evanescent time and clarity behind a nocturnal curtain. All Hallows Eve is round the corner, crackling leaves swirling the preternatural across the swale, filling our hollow with edginess, craggy shrieks and wildness rolling over then down the ridge face. She says, "Horse is colicky, need help to walk it off if we can." Just why certain breeds are more prone, nobody knows, but the pain's there. It's hardened the soft sepia welcome that's always deserved some sweet reward. We lumber round and round the arena, always one last time, but the usual bag of tricks fails, and the words come down from on high in a more direct, less roundabout dialect than Holmes. No amount of intercessions helped. Mercy now rests in what's inconceivably merciful. So the beast is brought down, its head pulled by the reins to the ground, where frost has stiffened grass blades, and I think how it must hurt him. He quirks his head to make certain I'm there, then rests his chilly muzzle against me as the remedy hits its mark, making his breath quicken in puffs like smoke that signal his fear. It's as if he knows poison's replaced what normally heals. I stroke the white blaze on his head. I whisper comfort, the familiar words of love and camaraderie, cobbled into a language of trust, as death works its way through his veins. The expectation drawn out from seconds to minutes to agony, when what's expected eludes that which science has determined should be. He raises his head, looks to me. For what? Reprieve? Or just for reassurance that the hurt will end? That I'll come to the paddock again, bring with me a sugar cube, or a carrot, that I'll stroke his ears as I chat of things he can't understand. But in the tenor and lilt of my voice, he'll hear the promise of tomorrow. And as the third syringe drains, the warm rise and fall of his bulk finally slows, till the last veil of breath drapes my stroking hand briefly, then lifts and dissolves into darkness, like some wounded soul slipping into the spirit world, leaving me behind to question if we'd really done what was right. The next poem's a more traditional one. It's in 3 short parts. I hope you'll bear with me. Each occurring in autumn. It's also about transitional times and places and boundaries and thresholds. The first occurs in Germany at a place many of you will recognize. The second took place when we first moved to Cullowhee. And the third is written about another fall, one that occurred in 2007. I call the poem Checkpoints. Just to clarify, to go a Viking is what Vikings call their raids or trade ventures. An Ouroboros from the Greek is a circular symbol depicting a snake or dragon swallowing its tail, and it usually is an emblem of wholeness or infinity. Metaphorically, I use it to reinforce the paradoxical nature of the ephemeral. What's fleeting happens over and over, that is, eternally. Just as a hint, the Berlin Wall fell in '89, and another fall happened in 2007, which made way for another kind of crossing. It was later dubbed the Great Recession. So here's Checkpoints. The Crossing, October 1982. He's gone a Viking, topsiders over his shoulder with his baguette rifle, his net full of sun, a metronome clocking East German gray. Suddenly, Denmark's a floundering of totes in oblivion. He's wandered from the dictated route, a 3-foot narrow footpath to Checkpoint Charlie, where an American, who sees nothing worth killing for, follows calling, "Stop, auf Deutsch," clutching at his arms, leading consternation back through a hail of rifling clatter, automatic chambering for deviation from the graveled way. Later, from the tripartite junction of Frederick, Broome, and Wall Streets, Fulbrighters would head back west again through a dingy east block of conformity. Waiting for clearance at the crossing, they'd bandy words and philosophies, fencing one another, questioning if they were truly free or just prisoners of capital ideas. And as guards, armed with machine guns and quirked mirrors, checked for disgruntled wards of the state, the students watched as a skein of geese soared above barbed extremity, arrowing its way into memory, like the wandering Dane, his orange loop rolling toward the wall. I was trying to rescue the Danish man who had he was wandered off the path, and then he had dropped his stuff, and he was trying to get it, and the guards had already started doing they got benefits for shooting people at the crossing, and my husband, poor guy, thought he was going to be a widow. The next part is called Ouroboros, November 1989. It's past time after all, they said, and so the two settled in a craggy place rich in rocks and old feuds, a corrosive logic as derelict as the old sulky in Eckstein Field. Afternoon sun, tatted by pines, had fallen one day beyond their flag steps onto a poisonous coil that furled and unfurled along the remains of a country garden, its tail a flailing red wiggler on a hook. And in the uncertain light of falling things, the good snake's wriggle across stone became the shadow of an ancient serpent god, writ small, slithering across centuries toward yet another victim, to gulp it down bit by bit, each hourglass mark, another vanishing epoch along a spastic circle of life and death. The shape of things to come, and symbol of eternal recreation, the writhing soul of the world. And this is a sonnet. This is the third part, called Appalachian Fall, November 2007. When does fall start? Within the whirl of each blighting whisper, long before it blows down rusty intelligence grappling for sap, because that's just what life does. All it knows is longing in the stalk before a snap consigns nature's flourish to moldering mulch round a tree. Frumpy beside evergreen dross, if not for its stirring denouement, a consonant swirl of transient sheen through a diminished landscape. Should dread gnaw too at that cadenza of crepitant wind as it augurs life from putrescent shade? Or might a ring of light skirting earth bring hope of a return from wintry dearth? Is that enough? I have one more I'll read, and I wrote it a few weeks ago as the leaves were just beginning to turn. I was walking to Hunter Library at Western. It seemed like another one of those in-between times, those liminal times, when flowers still bloom and some trees were still green, yet others were turning brilliant orange and yellow and purple. There was the nip in the air, that telltale sign of autumn. I'd almost reached Hunter on the concrete sidewalk. You know where I'm talking about, right? When I saw a divergent path cutting across what I'd remembered was once a beautiful swath. It'd been years since I'd been there, so I don't know how soon or how and when that path was cut. The temptation was great to diverge. The path was muddy, though, and something else stopped me as well. And then I went home and wrote the poem. I call it The Path Most Taken. To wrest time from effort, they've worn their angle like a gash into what once seemed pastoral, leaving their mucky red trail like some cattle-trodden pathway toward oblivion. A few paces further along, the concrete walk lies another kind of pristine, a 90-degree bend that calls to conscience, blinding in sunlight, gray when it rains. Whatever our choices, we leave consequences, the bare bones reality beneath what we want to be so. Profound, the mere state of cognizance, of choices to cross lines in the sand or pave over them. Either way, leaving our mark, a clue to whatever's at the heart of being human.
All right, our final reader is Jillian Berto.
Okay, closing it out. I'm Jillian, and I'll speak up. I have a few. I have a few poems. They skip around to themes from a horrible relationship where I was a total toddler in my reaction to it. And then also I'm an ER nurse, not a toddler, and the things that I take home from that. So the first one, they're pretty much all untitled. The first one is, there is a heart of a dog named Max. Blindly runs into the doors and walls, slides across the floor with aged hips working to coordinate and failing. His sweet face nuzzling the hand held out in front of him. Max never whimpers. And if he ever did start, how could anyone put him to sleep? The world is better for Max in it. But you and me, when can we put this dead dog down? The next one, again untitled, his smile as he lights a cigarette. What's being covered in ashes when you love someone? You breathe the smoke in from his throat like secrets from a dragon. Now here I am in the tub, stretching my body, naked as a jaybird, feet perched on the edge, flirting with the idea of what it would have been like to marry a lifetime of choking. Oh, sweetheart, the best thing you ever got me was out. And then I always thought I had met him once in another life. A love so powerful it could transcend our ideas of time, the stars, planets, and what's after. I'm seeing now these cords tied around my wrists are making my fingers bloom purple. See, when you're a star and you see a flash, you think it's the sun. Celestial beings forget that hell's bright too. So maybe we transcended those other lives, but baby, we die here. One of the next to last ones. There's a collection of tiny horrors in my heart. Stories of grandmothers left in chairs, urine chemically burning their bottoms because family doesn't come home. Blood baths and vomit bags and intubations that are death sentences. And when I go home, they come home too. They sleep with me, wind their way around my neck until I wake up because I can't breathe. And the last one. The kernel of sadness in my throat is a heavy reminder. Breathe out, the yoga teacher says. That when I do, it presses on my trachea. You're not taking deep breaths, the masseuse said. The small cry of my little brother comes to mind, a warning sound before he's on the ground. The seizure and uncaring interruption to his sentence, his presence, his life. I think of my job, cold rain and protesters, and when the doctor said, it's called a cry, taking the last remnants from this particular woman's uterus. You listen for that sound, that coarse scraping sound that means that we're all done with the procedure. My hands come forward, framing my feet, and in that instant, I could sob. And that's, thank you.